Before we begin, please be advised that this show may contain some adult themes that may not be appropriate for all listeners. Use your discretion. Now, on to our show. Welcome to the Sip and Saga Society, where we cover histories, mysteries, and just any story worth telling. Every week, one of us, Karina or Randy, and sometimes Greg, will cover a year in time while slowly traumatizing Christina along the way. My name is Karina, and I am one of your hosts. And joining us today is Randy and Christina. Dr. Greg had to do work. Rude. So it's just us. But yeah, I'm excited. It is the three of us. We're a fun time. And Christina dressed up for the occasion with a very adorable Snuggie. You guys can't see it, but it's so, oh, there's koalas on it. That's cute. Oh my God, they're so cute. Anywho, yeah, I'm Karina. And Randy, what are you sipping?
You know me at this point. I really enjoy myself too much to be ashamed. I have ice cold water, and I actually stopped by and got something for dinner. So I have a fountain Dr. Pepper, which is the superior
Wow.
version.
Yes,
Oh
ma'am.
my God, can you guys hear that?
No?
Oh, okay. Sage is going absolutely crazy on her toy duck. It sounds
Poor
like
baby.
something is legitimately being murdered in here.
Also, Christina, I appreciate you being on, even though you don't feel great.
I'm here. It's all good.
You're like, I am dressed. I am here. Well, what are you sipping today?
So every now and again we go to Andy's for a treat. If y'all don't know what Andy's is, it's just like a little ice cream place for listeners. But they have Spreckers, and so I got a little grape soda Sprecker.
I like that name.
I usually get the like a orange. It tastes like the what is it, a dreamsicle? It's like an orange. It's like an orange vanilla one, and that one's really good. But I got me grape to match my purple snuggie.
I love that. I, oh wait, Randy, do you have water?
Yes, I have water.
Good. I just wanted to make sure.
Me
Yep.
too, Randy. Me too.
Am I a fancy schmancy walla?
I need to get one of those. I have this little Walmart brand.
I got mine at Marshall's, and to be honest, I regretted it as soon as I bought it. Only because I have so many water bottles from like free water bottles and stuff, you know what I mean? So like I was like, ugh,
I
this
have to
was
use it every day forever.
unnecessary. This was so unnecessary. I freaking love this thing. Like I now that I've had it for a solid 6 months, I am obsessed with it. It was worth every single dollar I gave to the Marshalls.
Is it leak proof?
It is.
Oh, love that.
Well, and I have my straw in it right now, but you can take the straw out and close the lid completely
Oh,
so
that's
that
nice.
so that it can go places. I
Versatile.
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Hmm.
I love a straw. That's also another
Me too.
thing. I prefer a straw.
Hmm.
I have special skincare for those of you concerned about my wrinkles.
Have y'all
Randy,
seen
I am
those
taking care of it.
sideways, those horizontal straws that's supposed to
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it. I feel like it looked funny, but I get it.
I would be way more concerned about it spilling all over me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I in order to combat that, Christina, I like to put my straw all the way in the corner of my mouth
That's what I
and then
do.
hold it to the side.
Yeah, that's like
It
minimal
keeps you
effort.
it is, and it keeps you from pursing your lips.
Hey, whatever you gotta do, girl, you know.
You know what? We're trying to stay beautiful out here.
Okay. Karina, what
Youthful
are you
forever.
sipping?
Oh, yes. Okay, I was really proud of this wine. Look at it. Look at this guy. He's
Oh
just,
my gosh.
it's
He
Il
looks
Bas
so plump. I don't know how else
Il
to word that.
Bastardo, Il Bastardo
I was wondering,
wine.
it literally looked like bastard when you were
It
holding
it
it.
is. It
Yeah.
is. Il Bastardo.
Is
It's
it a
him.
dry wine?
We're gonna find out. I bought it
Okay,
strictly on name alone, so I'm gonna
I'd be
drink
doing
it
that.
because I
Okay, for
bought
all
it.
the listeners out there, when
But
Karina was hyping up this wine, she said she had the best wine, at least in her opinion. Now to find out that she hasn't even tasted it, Karina, that's wild.
I'm gonna drink it and I will let you know. I don't. I go based on aesthetics
I'm
alone.
gonna watch you take that first sip. I'm gonna look at your face.
You're
I'm
gonna be like, "What
gonna be
is
like,
it?"
oh, she don't like it. Oh, she like it, you know?
It
Is it
is
dry?
nice, but it is dry.
Kind of.
It's pretty wet for a red
No,
wine.
nope, nope.
Randy.
That's a no for me, dog.
I like it. It tastes like grape juice, honestly. It's like overhyped grape juice is what it feels like. I don't know. It does give juice energy. I don't know. I think I would buy it again. I think it would be really great as like sangria, like a
I
base
could see
for
that.
sangria.
The only person that can get one of my favorite wines currently is Christina. She can't even drink it. I don't even know what it's called. It's like the jumping stag. It's a Riesling. It's
Oh,
made in Arkansas, and it's got a jumping deer on it with a scarf situation happening. It's delicious. If you ever come across it, Christina, I know you won't be able to drink it, but
you can look at
you can
it.
share.
I will be after, well, I plan on, Green, you can cut this out. I plan on pumping, but I can also, like pump and dump. So I may have to go searching for, I don't want to say searching for it. It's probably everywhere, but
It
I'll have
is
to
I'm
go
gonna
find
find
it.
it
everywhere.
next time.
It is
I want to
Yeah.
find it when I'm in Arkansas.
Honestly, I've gotten some of what is it called? Is it the Winking Owl at Aldi? Some of their brand, like, which I think most wine does, but their wine will tell you like what it pairs well with and like if it's on the
Mm-hmm.
sweeter side and stuff. Those, I had one that was like a sparkling white wine, which is my vibe because y'all know I don't drink, so that one almost tasted like soda to me, kind of. Um, but yeah, I got it, and that bottle was like $4 or something, and I was like, what a steal! What a steal! Thanks, Aldi.
I mean, really.
It's
But I
giving
also
Trader
really like
Joe's
Aldi.
energy.
Mm. I didn't realize they were a sister company.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. To Trader Joe's, which like I've always liked Aldi personally. So
it's just so funny. I really like the picture of the guy. He's just chilling
he's
on
so
his
round.
bike. Yes, it really got me. I kept thinking about it. Anyway, the year we're covering today is 1741. Randy,
Yep.
what are you talking about?
Okay. So the year in question, 1741, was actually this was a difficult year to find something to cover. There was one major event, to be honest, to everyone. I thought Karina was covering it tonight. It wasn't until we talked just before this episode that I realized she wasn't covering it. So for those of you who would like to know, in 1741 there was a major slave revolt in New York. And we will not be talking about it on the podcast tonight, but you should look it up.
I was not
It was a big
aware
deal.
of this revolt
It was a big deal.
until just now.
But I decided to stick with American history, and tonight I'm going to be giving you all another cold and icy land, quote unquote, discovered by the Europeans. In this case, I'm kind of counting Russia as European, as it was their expedition, but it was led by a Danish man. Now, if I'm bringing up Russians, I'm sure you can guess what area of America we're going to be discovering tonight. Any guesses?
I can't.
Christina?
A
Canada.
hundred.
Canada. You're close. You're so close, but it's
Nova
America.
Scotia.
It's American now, guys. Okay. Well, you're so
Greenland.
close. We're going to Alaska.
Oh, we're going to
Randy told me,
Alaska.
but honestly, I did
I
not.
didn't
Okay,
feel like I
Randy
was
told me
close,
before
Randy.
this,
Guys,
but I was
we're gonna
like,
be talking about the Bering Strait a lot.
well, I didn't know. I didn't know the Russians were there, but you know what? It makes sense. They're like
Yeah,
on the other side.
they are. They are
Yeah,
exactly
I
right
picked a
there.
good day to wear my snuggie talking about cold weather again.
I know.
Well,
I
Randy is
know.
in the middle of the cold weather.
That's
Mm-hmm.
true. It
Hmm.
was 34 degrees today, so that was
It's been
pretty nice.
86 here.
That's
I was gonna say, I
outrageous.
think it was like in the 60s or 70s today. So,
I'm excessively like anxious about the summer. I don't know how I'm gonna make it.
Oh,
yeah,
I
girl,
don't
I
worry
don't,
about the summer.
yeah.
Mm-mm. Anywho, Randy, go on.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so where does the colonization story start? Colonization usually outlines a purpose or reason for this needed expansion. In the case of Russia, it was really about money and politics. So the fur trade had been thoroughly depleted by the 18th century, and Russia's fur animal populations were not enough to satisfy demand. This was a very big deal because taxation of furs alone accounted for as much as 10% of Russia's national budget. 10%. Now, I want to give you guys like the right time frame because this is a Peter the Great time frame. So this man was doing a lot. Like when you think about Peter the Great, he was doing invasions, he was having beef with Sweden, I believe it was. Like he was doing all kinds of things. Like if you watched The Great, you're gonna kind of know the man that was because they reference him quite a bit. So 10% of the nation's budget, that was a big chunk of change. Peter the Great became obsessed with extending Russian influence and took special interest in the lands of the far North Pacific, which had yet to be explored or claimed by other European powers. In an effort to satisfy his curiosity, the Tsar funded a secret expedition. Why secret? Well, Russia was terrified that other European nations would take note of their efforts and swoop in to steal the land from the natives first. They wanted a chunk of that continent, and they thought their best bet was to go onto the other side, the west coast of the country, which makes sense. If you guys are familiar with your maps, you know the tip of Russia is like something like 30 miles from the tip of Alaska. All that separates them is what's now known as the Bering Strait. According to one of the Tsar's admirals, there was no better commander to lead this secret expedition than Vitus Bering. Danish by birth, Vitus Bering spent a large portion of his life in the Russian Navy, going by the name of Ivan Ivanovich. I am going to call him Vitus Bering for the entirety of this story. That is his legal name, and it is the name of his they used to name everything after. They did not name it Ivanovich straight, so we're gonna go with Bering. Vitus was brought in by Peter the Great as a foreign specialist to help modernize the empire through exploration and discovery. He was born in 1681 in Denmark and began his seafaring life there. By the time he joined the Russian Navy as a sub-lieutenant in 1703, he had already explored as far as the East Indies. It wasn't long before he had earned himself a reputation and a promotion to lieutenant in 1707 and captain lieutenant by 1710. He eventually made captain, second class, in 1720, a full decade later, but was refused captain, first class, in 1723, leading to his early retirement. I do think it was kind of funny that he was so put out by the fact that they wouldn't make him captain first class after 3 years that he was like, I'm just retiring. Nobody's in it for me.
I
That's
feel
what he
like
did
I
in
would
my
do that though. That
That's what
feels
he
like
did in
me.
my
I'd be
head.
like, I'm not doing this again. I'm done. I'm over it.
Honestly, yeah, me too. Honestly, yeah. I'm thinking because after a little bit, I'm like, you're gonna be sitting there
Yeah.
come on, guys, I'm right here.
So basically, what was so funny about that though is that it's exact. I'm making light of it, but that's exactly what some of the accounts say he did. They're like when he was rejected from being first commander or captain first class, he immediately was like, "Well, I'll just go to the country and I'll do something out there." Like,
Cool, I'll just fuck off.
yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I'm just gonna go.
But
Oh,
in
poor guy.
1724, so not long after 1723 at all, when he retired, Vitus Bering was persuaded to leave retirement and re-enlist at the rank of captain first class to lead this expedition.
That's all it
Yeah, he
took.
wasn't
He
coming
said,
back for nothing.
yeah, I know you come back for me. All right.
Yep. He was
All
like, you
right.
guys
And that
need
is a
my
lesson to
expertise.
stand by your worth,
Yep.
hmm
but also do not do that if you are not worth it because
Well,
Yeah.
actually, reading through his stuff, I don't mention it anywhere, but he had a decent reputation. Like he was well liked by his men. He was considered to be fair, really level-headed. So I kind of do feel like he earned that little bit for
Mm,
himself. Anyway,
I do believe it. Anyway, he goes on to do what?
he leads this first expedition, overseeing 100 men from 1725 to 1729. The Tsar himself wrote out the explicit instructions of the mission, which weren't given to Bering until the morning of his departure. As it happened, Peter the Great would not know the conclusion of his secret mission, as he would die in 1725. But Bering was already carrying out this expedition of discovery. In those 4 years, Bering and his men navigated the strait, discovered St. Lawrence Island and the two Diomedes, which are two small and rocky islands in the middle of the Bering Strait, but they did not find more before returning to the capital. So I want to clarify the whole Bering Strait situation before we get too far into this story. Um, the Bering Strait, as it were, was known by Russia for nearly a century. Okay, a Cossack explorer, so a Slavic explorer for those of you who don't know what Cossack means. It's a different regional classification, but they're called that region Slavic now. Simon Desnev passed through the strait in 1648, but this knowledge was not widely circulated through Europe. This is my little conspiracy about this, but if you ask me, that kind of lines up right with Russia's MO to hide that information until it could be used for their benefit, and their gain. If they were so worried about alerting any of the European powers that they were going to, look in that area, it's not surprising to me that they would have hoarded that information about the Bering Strait.
Randy. I guess apparently I've never looked at a fucking globe. So I didn't realize that
It's
Christina,
Russia.
the
what?
map.
Hold
The map,
on.
if it's flat, if it's
Yeah,
flat.
right. I didn't realize that it was so close.
Yeah, it's fucking close.
You know,
Yeah.
okay, when we were talking about it, I was thinking in the terms of like going from like New England and going that way, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
Canada,
That's why, yeah.
Canada. I was going the long way
No, we're talking
to
the Pacific.
Alaska.
We're talking the Pacific Ocean. Guys, I don't know how you don't remember this because this is eternally stuck into my head for the Sarah Palin situation when she used to go out and say, "I can see Russia from my porch." Like like that's how close Russia is to Alaska.
Yeah, I
I
didn't.
think
I
I
like
think
looked at the
Sarah
map.
Palin and I black out. Like I don't want to remember.
That's fair, but like that
Okay,
is
sorry, continue. I just
stuck
wanted
in my
to
head.
let you know that I'm dumb
No,
and I didn't, I've never looked at a globe very closely before.
I forgot, and
Well,
now I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Russia
Yeah.
really had a phenomenal opportunity to like
yeah.
take hold here.
Well, and I think it should really give people perspective when we're talking about modern day warfare. And whenever anyone talks about shooting Russia, I'm always like, can you imagine? Because people don't think about it, like what we just talked about, Christina. They're thinking, man, you have to get over to Europe and then you've got to
Yeah.
start shooting an offensive into Russia. And I'm like, no, we're gonna be like
They're right
right
next to
next
us.
door. They're right fucking next door.
They're
It's
gonna
gonna
be
be
like,
bad.
It's
you
a
want Alaska
globe,
to become an
guys.
island? We'll
Right?
make
Like,
Alaska an island.
I'm like, I just want to put it in perspective as to another reason why the United States does not like to pick fights with Russia.
Hmm.
It is because we are neighbors. We are neighbors.
Literally.
Okay, but whose fault is that? Who told us to get giant? Hmm?
Well, James Monroe with the Monroe Doctrine, which I will talk about in a second. So, by 1728, Bering's crossing and thorough documentation led to his fame and saw his name attached to both the strait, which we now know is the Bering Strait, and a sea, which there's a Bering Sea out there. Now, this trip didn't do much to satiate the drive of Russia or Bering himself. Russia wanted access to a portion of the Americas and needed to establish trade possibilities with the resources they found. Although Bering was promoted to captain commander, I mean, this man keeps rising, he wanted to continue his exploration. At his suggestion, a second expedition was approved for 1733 to 1742. It was one of three components of the Great Northern Expedition, one of the most ambitious and expensive undertakings in the history of exploration. It comprised 13 ships and around 3,000 men of varying backgrounds and skill sets.
Brandy, there are a lot of those are a lot of people. They're like, we're throwing everything at this.
Yes, 3,000 men. It's insane. And when I say varying backgrounds and skill sets, I mean they were sending scientists out. They were sending documentarians to take note of everything that was happening. They were like, we're gonna really be cataloging what's happening.
They should have taught the other people that you talked about in the last episode. All them
Well,
people
they
bringing books
actually
and
don't
everything.
fare. They don't fare much better.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, so they
Damn.
were tasked with surveying the coast of Siberia, venturing down to Japan and across to the Americas. Due to the complexity and the scope of the exhibition, Bering didn't leave Siberia until 1740, 7 years after he left St. Petersburg after receiving the like note or the deed or whatever it is that they gave to them. Oh, there it is, the orders. He received orders to go on this expedition. So it was 7 years from St. Petersburg to him leaving Siberia. And this was due to a multitude of reasons. I mean, at that time period was very tumultuous, and there was a lot going on that was hindering the expedition. Despite high hopes, Bering's two ships were permanently separated after 2 weeks due to a storm and continued on alone. So each of them continued westward. Now, Christina, this is why this is going to feel even more like the Franklin expedition that I did. So one of the ships made landfall in July of 1741 in the Gulf of Alaska. Interestingly enough, though, some of the men disembarked and were never seen again. They just never made it back to the ship.
Dang, that's
Yep. That
That is
area
the
just
worst cruise. That
ate
is,
people up.
yeah,
wow.
That area just ate people up.
that is crazy.
You just
What are
never
the
get off the
weather
boat,
other
guys.
than cold? Like, what are the weather conditions like, or what's like the environment, I guess?
It's rainy and wet. There is a lot of ice amongst that precipitation. So depending on like what we talked about last time, depending on what the weather patterns are, you could be stuck in ice, you could become landlocked during the winter time. And depending on how far north you are, it may not completely thaw. So cold, basically cold.
I'm not
See, and
moving
to
to
be wet
Alaska.
too is
Mm-mm.
like a totally a different vibe too with that. Like,
Christina, and wet? No.
Yep. Well, and then to top that off, you got to think about the type of predators that are out there. You've got polar bears and wolves. Don't
I
want
forgot
to
about the
really
animals.
cross either one of them. And for anyone who didn't know, moose are actually very aggressive creatures, and you should not get anywhere near them because
And they're
they will
giant.
kill you.
I was gonna say they're
Yes.
super big. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're huge.
They're
And I've
very
heard they're
territorial.
violent.
They're
Hmm.
very,
Hmm.
very territorial. Don't do it.
They will kill you.
They will.
They want you today to die, to die.
The polar
Dead and
bear
to
and
die.
the wolves would at least eat you. The
I
moose
forgot about
would
the
just
wolves
kill
and the
you.
polar bears, and then you have to remember about the moose.
There was a lot out there trying to kill you.
Yeah, I wouldn't come back either after that.
So it was returning from that loss when that ship turned. Remember, there were two ships. So this ship turns around and it ends up finding indigenous people, the Aleutians, and their islands. Now, I'm sure I'm saying that right because of the regional dialect. I am so sure that the T's are much more clicky than that. I'm not going to be able to do that, just so we're clear. So, as we became acquainted with in the boat story that I did earlier, scurvy hit the other crew. So now we're on to the other ship. Scurvy's hitting the other crew hard. Hard, hard, hard. They had gotten stranded, this ship, and due to the malnutrition and the scurvy, several men died that winter, including Commander Vitus Bering. So he never sees his home again. In a similar parallel to the boat story again, Bering had accomplished his task at the expense of his life and a portion of his crew. That following summer, because they were stuck, they had to stay through the winter, the remaining men fashioned a boat from the wood of their ship. Yeah, I don't know how they
Resourceful.
I don't know how they trusted themselves enough to do that. If we're being quite honest, I would have been terrified. I would have been that person the entire time saying, "Are you sure you nailed that there?
Did you do it right, though?
Don't we need tar to make it waterproof?" Like I'd be saying all kinds of things. But they fashioned a boat from what remained of their ship, and they returned home to find the very first ship had returned nearly a year prior.
Oh, they were just like, I didn't realize
They
how
didn't,
long it had
they
been.
literally never saw each other again after 2 weeks. They were together 2 weeks, never had completely separate voyages from that point forward.
That's freaking wild.
It is. It's crazy to me that when you think about how little space that was, how they could lose each other, just really talks to me about how awful the weather must have been too. So this expedition had laid the foundation for a Russian claim to exploration and settlement. It also showed their efforts to reinvigorate the fur trade were poised on the precipice of success. The expedition had managed to return with 2,000 sea otter pelts, which triggered a rush of trades and settlement. So once they established a connection, they started trading with the people, the indigenous people, 2 days after they landed, if you can believe that. They wasted zero amounts of time. By 1799, Russia had established Russia America and founded the Russian American Company. Now, that company was founded on the back of the Shelikov company that was engaged in morally reprehensible behavior that we're about to get into. So, what should you know about Alaska now that I've told you all about the year that they were discovered, which put them in the orbit of America? According to the National Park Service, the first people to reach Alaska came about 15,000 years ago across the land bridge following a herd of animals. As far back as 12,000 years, the Alouette people crossed over and made their home in what we now call Canada and Alaska. The word Alaska actually comes from the word Alax. Now, I did say that right, meaning the mainland or the Great Land. So it's a word from the Alouette language, which I thought was nice because it's always nice when the indigenous names remain, in my opinion. Alaska was not different in its cost to the indigenous people living in the land before colonization. Despite this pervasive thought of vast, empty lands ripe for European expansion, every country had to kill and slaughter to claim the resources and land that they now have, or had at the time. Between 1741 and 1799, there were growing numbers of indigenous revolts to end Russian expansion and exploitation. One of the largest examples of this took place in 1784 with a major battle over Kodiak Island, where 4,000 Alutiiq were slaughtered, with cannon fire being used indiscriminately against them. I,
Randy,
yes. Yep.
that's messed up. That's like
hmm
who the fuck is like cannons? Those
Actually,
people, I
there's a
guess.
lot of points in history that I can point to. The first thing coming is when they put cannons onto Athens. That was crazy. They literally shot cannons at, anyway, not what we're talking about today. Another example comes from 1791 to 1796, where two Russian companies engaged in industrial terrorism, where the indigenous people were directly in the crossfire. Why, you may ask? Well, because the Russians had allied themselves with individuals and groups to trade furs and hunt. The companies targeted these groups through capturing, beating, and torturing, and in some cases killing the hunter or their wives in order to disrupt the other company's fur trade. Yeah. What became clear in this industrialized terrorism is that Russian against Russian wasn't the tactic if scapegoats could be found. In a final nail, the Russians found the Denaina women. I know I said that wrong. I'm so sorry. To be very beautiful and targeted them as concubines. I couldn't find anything to say that it wasn't just rape and abuse. It seems like the Russians just like to call that concubines. You know what I'm saying?
I think that everybody will use verbiage that makes them feel better about themselves.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna
And they
change the
did.
words. Mm-hmm.
And that deeply disturbed the indigenous peoples who did not have space for that kind of activity in their culture or their cultural understanding. By 1794, religion would arrive and the assimilation of the indigenous people would begin in earnest. Now, I'm going to add in a tidbit of vengeance because I do love when a story ends in a little fire and brimstone. So the religion came in 1794, but the head of the church was killed in 1796 while acting out as a missionary for the region. An unconfirmed story claims that he had sexual relations. Again, I'm air quoting because you can't see me, but it's giving very Bill Clinton sexual relations with,
Sexual relations with that
yeah,
woman.
mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
with a Denaina woman shortly before his death. Yeah, so you know those people took their vengeance, and I'm happy about that. A year prior, 13 Russian men who had embarked on a raid to pacify, again air quoting, the natives to kidnap indigenous women for sex slavery were killed. The leader of that wasn't just killed, he was castrated, blinded, and then crucified.
Good.
Good, exactly.
These
Bring
things
that back.
happen.
Bring that back. So I bring this up because there are scholarly works out there that try to paint Russia as a different kind of world power. One such article read, unlike British colonization of the Atlantic coast of North America and the subsequent colonization of the interior regions of the mainland, the Russian state did not seek to push back or exterminate the natives, but rather to include them in its composition. Like, what the fuck are you trying to say here? Because I don't think that including someone in your composition as a concubine is really a way to say that you're
Inclusive,
not
yeah.
trying to
We rape them.
exterminate. Like there are
Yeah.
documented cases of them, the Russians luring the indigenous men onto ships or into their camps and killing them also just so that they can take the women for concubines. So, dude, what? And the
See,
Yeah,
topic of
it wasn't like we added them, we took them in, we had a Thanksgiving dinner with them. We had a, like it's not like we just met them and were bros. Like they came in and they killed everybody and murdered
yes,
and abused everything.
I
yes,
think trying to put that positive spin on it too and being like, this half of what we did was not as bad.
yeah,
So let's focus on that. Like, no,
yeah.
you can focus on the whole thing. And it was terrible.
There's so much to unpack, but what really gets me is that it just weirds me out that so often the oppressors, right, the oppressive people have this expectation of not just silence, but gratitude from the people that they oppress. Like it reminds me so much of the propaganda that's happening in the American school system right now that's focused, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but it says that the enslaved people in America were gaining valuable skills through slavery. And
Stop.
no, I'm not joking.
Oh my gosh.
Some textbooks in the South legitimately say pros and cons for slavery, and one of the pros is that the slaves were gaining valuable skill sets. Like, can we please have a reality check?
Did they say they came here for a work study? Because what the actual fuck? Like they were here to just learn some skills.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Mm-hmm.
decided to travel for a better
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to learn skills.
The Russians were just so friendly. They wanted to include the indigenous women in their bedroom.
They
You
wanted to
know,
be friends with everybody, Randy.
I think it's really important that we address that issue because I need people to stop saying things like that. And I hope that you, as our listener, are really questioning some of the things you might have been told growing up. So the Russian presence in Alaska would last up until 1867 when the country sold to America. Once Russia had decided that the land was no longer worth anything. They had they had just come out of the Crimean War and they were like, what are we gonna do with all of this? We just a bunch of land that's got nothing on it. It's hard to live. There's no resources. We're just gonna sell it off. This is a time in American history where America is really focused on manifest destiny and the Monroe Doctrine, which shout out to what we said earlier. And they were really eager to expand, especially when looking at Alaska, which was the equivalent of 1/5 of America's current holdings. So they were going to substantially increase their land mass. So things would change dramatically in that region once again.
Randy, I'm just envisioning like calendar pictures I've seen of Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot imagine looking at any of those and being like, this is worth nothing. Like, just get rid of it. Just put it at the thrift store. I don't care. Just get rid of it. Like,
Well,
I
okay,
cannot imagine that.
I know. So listen to this. Listen to this. You're gonna love this next part. Alaska, which is often known as the last frontier, and became the 49th state of the United States. It was purchased from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million. The modern equivalent of that in today's dollars is 130 to 160 million for all of Alaska. So for those of you trying to do the calculations, it comes to 2 cents an acre. They sold Alaska for 2 cents an acre. The state itself is valued currently at 2.6 to 3.3 trillion dollars based on resources and land area alone. So don't you think Russia feels even stupider knowing that now?
That's why they're out kicking themselves. That is crazy. I think what's crazy, I'm so glad you said that because I was just gonna ask you, I was like, did we have to like take it back? Like, you know what I mean? Because at first, because they came and took over, and I was like, dang, what do we do? And I just bought it.
We did. We just bought it.
I
We
was
did
like,
that. We did the Louisiana Purchase. We were like, nothing can satiate the dream of expansion. Not even those pesky natives.
and the thing about it is, I was just gonna say that at the beginning too, where you were like, they were worried about other countries finding out and getting to the natives like before they did. And I'm like, they ain't no one give a shit about them people. They
Mm-mm.
I was yeah, damn. I was like, they didn't even deserve all that. They didn't even do nothing.
No.
They were literally just minding their own
Just there,
business.
yeah, living.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and life doesn't get much better for them.
Oh,
So, skipping forward into the future to World War II, um, now I may be wrong, but World War II doesn't usually evoke an image of fighting in Alaska, but fight they did. So, again, if you think about the globe conversation that Christina brought up, Russia and Japan, which are right there on that side of Alaska, right? They were coming to fight at the Bering Strait. Colonization and assimilation had scarred much of the indigenous population and had led to massive population declines. This was then exacerbated when Japan invaded the island chains in the northern Pacific. Communities that had survived the terrors of initial invasion disappeared after World War II. The Japanese had feared the island's placement as a potential land to launch counterattacks against themselves and the Russians by the United States. Or if they could get control of the territory, it was going to be a really beautiful spot for Japan to launch attacks at the United States. That's what they were thinking. So they relocated the villagers to internment camps, where over half died of malnutrition and starvation. For those of you who want to argue semantics, internment camp, concentration camp, if you get sent to a camp, it's not a good thing. Should never be sent to a camp by the government. Just gonna put that out there. So when everything was said and done, the U.S. took responsibility to return the indigenous people to their homelands, mostly. Some of the islands they said were too small to travel to, so the survivors needed to make their homes on the larger islands with other survivors. All totaled, somewhere north of 1,500 people were killed during that time. There is a lot of conservation work happening in Alaska, and people are still fighting for their lands. And, you know, I feel really good for them for the work that they're doing. That by no means diminishes any of the suffering that they have been through, or honestly, the suffering that they are still going through. I'm sure if you guys have watched um, any modern day TV show, like I'm trying to remember the names of a couple of them, but they talk a lot about murdered and missing Indigenous women. That's particularly bad in Alaska. Uh, really tragic. So, yeah, that's it for me. That's it. I got nothing else to say.
I feel like my mouth will be like a frown for like 4 days now. So
Yeah, that's I don't it's what you said in the beginning as far as the intro. I get traumatized every time. I get traumatized by my own stupidity, not knowing that freaking Russia was that close to Alaska.
Russia
But
is right there.
it's so close. But no, that's crazy. Like, I don't know, like the traveling. So, just to recap, none of the 3,000 survived,
None of
or
the 3,000
the men and stuff on the.
for the 13 ships.
Hmm.
Oh no, a lot of them did survive actually.
Okay, okay.
The ones that went specifically that were charted to go to northern
Hmm.
Pacific to like to those islands, those are the two that suffered the heaviest losses though.
I see.
They lost over half their crews.
Dang. Dang. And you said scurvy
Scurvy. The scurvy's
got.
getting these men.
But
They
also, the
do.
rest of them were raping and pillaging, so
Yeah, that's
mm,
true. Well, and that's the other thing that really just frustrates me is is when they go like historians and people try to rationalize and say shit like, oh, the Russians weren't there to kill or harm or do anything. Knowing what we know about the stories of starvation and a lack of resources and how hard hunting was up there, it would have been the Hunger Games. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
There was no way for them not to justify what they did, but there was no way for them to get there and then not need to kill in order to survive.
Yeah.
That land is just so barren. Nothing like what we talked about when we're talking about like Virginia and like all of the resources that they just couldn't tap into, right?
Hmm.
There are no resources in this part of Canada and Alaska. Just ice? I
there
don't
is
know. I
so much
just
ice.
find it
Yeah.
really frustrating.
That was a story, Randy. When you said the discovery of Alaska, I was like, "Oh my God, that sounds so exciting." And then I was
Well,
like,
it was exciting when I got to tell it from the colonial perspective, right? Like the whole first of the story, half of the story was just the European version, and then the whole second half was how did it affect the indigenous people there?
it wasn't good. No.
No,
It's still not good.
no.
It's never good. Well, thank you for telling us that.
Yeah, yeah. I always appreciate your research. It sounds sad saying that, your research and everything, and every story you tell. But it's good to bring light to those situations because, I mean, I know I said like, oh, like they didn't give a damn about those people or whatever, but like they are still people, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like I think bringing light that even though it's an unfortunate one, but just putting it out there that it was like it wasn't like they just took it and that was it. And because I mean I feel like that's a lot of the perception is like, oh, they went there, they took it, and then on to the next thing, and people don't
Mm-hmm.
really understand the deeper of there was people that were already there that had gotten, like you said, killed, raped, murdered, all that stuff in order for that to happen. And so I think bringing that education and bringing the light to that is the more you know.
Yeah, let me ruin that for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I will say is that I don't know that I ever read the full comprehensive story of what happened after Russia, you know, I'm air quoting again for people. I have to air quote all the time whenever I use these colonizing words, but when Russia, founded Russia, America, and like it became that thing, I don't think I knew because that's not American history. It's not what I would have been taught in school. I don't think I learned anything about what Russia did to Alaska before we bought it. Like that was all new information to me.
When I moved to New Mexico, I realized I only knew about Arkansas, and even that I do not remember.
Mm,
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anything other than the state I was born in because that's all you learn. They're like, we can tell you one. That's it.
Well, when they do touch on other things, it's very minimal, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, I guess as far as like even for me, like learning about like other countries, like honestly, the only thing that really sticks out to me was when you learned about like dictators and stuff. You know what I mean? And like then you hear
hmm
people from like other countries and stuff like that. But other than that, like I feel like unless it's a major move in history, everything else is kind of like I don't want to say swept under the rug, but basically, right, like they're not going to deep dive into everything. And so I feel like it's just very general.
Yeah.
It's all the Cliff Notes versions of it. We don't
Or
talk about like
yeah.
what people are actually going through.
Mm-hmm.
Or they put out those bullshit lists of how people gain from slavery.
Yeah. I'm so see, it's the little facts like that that just like keep me in awe. I literally told my sister-in-law the other day about was it Greg? One it yeah, maybe it was Greg that told us about the school that had just it was like 2016 when they um
Oh no, I
went
told
away
you
with the whole
that
was it
Mississippi.
yes.
Hmm
And I was telling her
hmm
that and she looked at me and she goes, "No shit." And I said, "No, really." And she looked it up and she was like she was like, "I'm gonna have to read about this later." I was like, "Girl, I'm telling you, like it's crazy, like the things that we just don't know."
I was telling Randy that before we started. I was like, we don't know anything. We get absolutely nothing. Every time we take notes, I'm like, I've never seen this piece of information in my life.
Yeah, me
Well,
with Russia and Alaska. I feel I traumatized myself with that.
I think the other thing is that to the benefit of the podcast for everyone listening, you should really be really proud of Karina and I because we have been purposely adding in historical accounts from different perspectives. So when I talk about the colonial perspective and the indigenous perspective, Karina and I are putting in the legwork to find out what that other per perspective actually was. And I think on top of not being told any other history, we also only get the widest version of events.
It isn't until you're taking notes and you're wanting to say things like you're not a colonizer person that you're like, wow, everything is written one way.
Yeah,
But it is hard until you're in those
yeah.
in the trenches of research.
Well, and it's really frustrating because so much of the documentation, like that I would be interested in specifically from an indigenous perspective, a lot of that was oral traditions. You know what I mean? And they did not bother recording that. They basically made sure that the elders never taught the kids that. You know what I mean? So like it's really frustrating for me too when I'm going back and reading these accounts because so many of them don't feel complete, if that makes sense. And there's no good way. I mean, every generation laments about some lost history or some lost piece of information, but I honestly believe that that loss of oral history and traditions is an equivalent to the loss of the Library of Alexandria. And I mean that 100% seriously. We have no idea the amounts of scientific work, the amounts of engineering and health and cultural expansion, about roots and indigenous movements that we just do not know now at all.
Right, because we just killed everybody and then forced everyone else to assimilate to European standards.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys will have to forgive me if I get on this bandwagon. I feel very strongly about it.
I mean, I feel strongly about it with you, so you can tell.
Solidarity.
Yeah. All right, Randy, are you done? I'm checking now.
Yeah, I'm really done. I really am
Okay.
done.
Um, so I feel bad because I Randy really puts a lot of like strategic thought into every topic, like picking the year, right? And I just kind of go through my books and I'm like, this one feels right. And then I just pick a year. And so I didn't even know about the rebellion that Randy was talking about. I picked this year because I liked the name and it went with the story I wanted to tell. So, yeah, I just kind of picked a year from my reading. And I picked this one because it was about a boat called the SeaFlower, which sounded cute. But then I did more research. And according to a post on the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, it was called, quote, a cannibal cruise liner of 18th century immigration. I'm gonna drink water before we keep going. But
Wait,
yeah,
I'm gonna need a breakdown of that name. It was called this before it embarked, or this is after the fact? This is
this
like,
is what historians like call it.
oh, okay. Okay. Because for a second I was
That'd be
like, these
fucked.
Victorians are
Randy.
are lining up and paying for the Cannibal Cruiser. I was thinking it was like a, you know, you know how like the big cruises have names for their boats and stuff. I was like, I cannot fathom the Cannibal Cruiser. But they were always writing those horror stories. Maybe it was like a Mary Shelley themed, like this is what was happening in my head.
Christina, what's the name of the cruise ship you're taking? Oh, it's that Cannibal Cruiser. But you never
Yeah.
know.
You never could you imagine just be like my kid, like Easton, telling that to his teacher? She's gonna be like, dude, are you
Don't go on that.
she's gonna send me a message and be like, are you aware
Are you aware about the
um
cannibal ship?
about the cannibal ship that you're about to embark on? Yes, very aware. Will not partake, but we'll see what happens.
I got a really good deal on it.
These people did not get a good deal, is what I'm about to tell you.
Oh, back to the
Yeah.
sad stuff, back
Randy's
to the
story
trauma.
was so sad. And then I'm like, it's gonna get worse because
But
that's what
wait, there's more.
colonization does to people. Anyhow. Yes, the SeaFlower with the cute name set sail from Belfast, Ireland in July of 1741. It was headed towards Philadelphia with 108 passengers on board. We often see history through a lens of our modern comforts, but long distance travel at this time was not a vacation by any means. Throughout most of American history, immigration to the New World was difficult. It was expected that children under 7 would rarely survive the trip, and an account from German immigrant Gottlieb Mittelberger wrote about how the water was very black, thick, and full of worms. The biscuits were full of red worms and spiders. The ship was full of fumes, horrors, vomiting, and, quote, on board our ship, a woman about to give birth and unable to deliver was just pushed through the portholes and into the sea.
Karina, every part of that sentence engaged my what the fuck lines.
I was like, what is happening?
Dang, I'm glad they have standards now. They wouldn't even, so, Randy, I don't
I'm
know.
glad they have standards now. Are you kidding me, Christina?
Well, I would hate to be like, oh, you're too far along. You gotta go. Gotta
The hole is
go.
right there.
The
Climb on in.
whole slide down, you're gone. Sorry. No, it's crazy because, like, I'm just saying, because I think it just, I was supposed to go on a cruise in February, or like, yeah, in February already. But when I had booked it, it was before I even found out I was pregnant or anything. I think we're trying to find out if Logan had to be like potty trained, right, to go into the pool and all that. Well, they look it up and they were like, there's a rule if you're 26 weeks before you get on the cruise, like you can't go. Like they won't let you on a boat. And I didn't know that. And I was like, I'm literally going to be 27 weeks, like getting on the boat. And so I had to reach out to them and like cancel it and get a refund and everything because they were like, even with the doctors, no, like, you're not getting on this boat, ma'am.
I
Like,
said you're not getting on this boat.
yeah. And a lot of it, well, and I think that's why it made me think of to the point of the cruise is they have medical staff, but like if I were to give birth to my baby prematurely, like they don't have like a
I was about to
NICU.
say,
Yeah.
do you know what that cutoff is, Christina? That cutoff is the line of viability.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the viability line.
And that's
That's
what
crazy. Actually, that's
yeah.
crazy.
But like that's what I'm
They're
saying,
like,
like for
oh,
them to
the
be
minute
like
that this is not just a miscarriage, but we might have to give birth, you can't come.
yeah. And like, and then I was thinking of it too, because I was like, well, cruise ships are big. It's a lot of walking. And like, if you do, you know what I mean? If you do too much walking, like that can, make things happen. And so I was like, you know what? I probably wouldn't, because I'm already waddling right now. So I probably wouldn't have had a lot of fun. Um, and so that's why we have one in November, is because I was like, I'd rather baby carry, but not inside my belly carry
Yeah,
while on a cruise.
Maybe you can take her off, Carrie.
baby, you can take it. Baby, you can have
Dad
the
can,
baby.
yeah, dad can
Someone else
have
can
her.
carry you.
Uncle can have her. Yeah, we have plenty of people to baby carry
Good.
her and or stroller her.
I'm 100% sure you will find a willing participant to hold that baby.
Yeah,
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if I was on that cruise, I would be like, I am taking this baby.
Yeah.
Good luck taking her from
Yeah,
me. I will
just
fight
be
you.
very careful though, because I feel like drunk people will do that too, and that would terrify me. And they
No,
start drinking early on those cruise ships.
they do.
they do. No. I feel like if sober me was like, I'm taking care of this baby, I would stay sober the whole time because you're
Oh,
taking care of a baby.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I do not think everyone shares um
I mean, I'm
that
not going,
line.
but I would fight somebody for your baby, Christina. And that, I mean, also for your baby, Randy, if we were on a cruise together
I
with a
would
baby.
love to have a baby, ideally one I did not give birth to. I really don't want to push anything out.
Girl, I'm one of those people, like
Mhm.
everyone always, I know we're going off topic here, and I'm sorry.
I don't
I'm
care.
one of those people, if you ask, you're like, do you like, I don't like being pregnant. I'd say that up front.
Yeah.
I
As a
do
person
not
who's
like
never been
being
I
pregnant,
pregnant.
think I'd be an absolutely awful pregnant person, Christina.
Girl,
I
like I'm
really
I would be
like,
do.
horrendous. Yeah.
and then my thing is, I'm not saying it's not beautiful or it's not, like blessed or whatever. Like, it's wonderful that my body can do this, but like, I'm,
Why does it need to?
I'm
Just
tired.
because it
Yes.
can, why does it need to?
I'm tired. I'm front heavy. My back hurts. She's
Why
big to
does
the
it have to
point
last so
where, like,
long?
yeah, and she's like kicking me, and it's very uncomfortable, and I can't sleep
No.
comfortably. My hips hurt. Like, and don't get me wrong, I know there's women out there who are like super active in their pregnancies. I'm sure that, I don't know, maybe they don't have issues. I don't know. But for me, I'm like, I'm struggling doing everything, and my breathing heavy. I have like the worst third trimester rage. Like everything just pisses me off. It's so bad. Like
Mm.
I had a whole conversation with my husband, like a 5 minute conversation that I was partially asleep for, and I had to apologize
Christina,
to him
I
this
love
morning.
that.
I was like, dude, I'm so sorry for how I was speaking to you. Like I didn't realize I was speaking to you like that. And he goes, dude, you were ripping into my ass over the TV being too loud for you. And I like texted him because like we have like our bedroom and the boys' bedrooms are across from each other, and he was out in the living room, and we have a fairly small house, like, or it's a decent size, but like it's small, and like he had to go do something, and I guess he forgot to pause the TV, and the next video that came, the guy's voice is just carries, and I texted him, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, turn it off. And I'm like, I'm so mad, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna try, and I was like, dude, you're pissing me off. I was like, sleep on the couch for all I fucking care. Like I was so upset about it. For whatever reason, I'm terrible,
No, I
y'all.
mean, yeah, I'm just
No,
PMSing and I'm like ready to throw hands with
Yeah,
everything that moves.
yeah.
So I cannot imagine like what I would be like pregnant. I was thinking about that today. I was like, I don't think I could do it. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't want to. I don't want to do any part of the pregnancy, and I don't want to push anything out. Those are the two biggest things. I'll love
Hmm.
anything that somebody else has.
If you push it out for me, I'll just take it from you.
I
Honestly,
literally tell people, I'm like,
in
if
a
I could go from just having the baby, just give the baby to me, I'm
yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yes, but also, yeah, this was horrendous. The description was awful, and I abridged it a lot. Like I shortened it quite a bit. The descriptions were vivid. That's the thing that I think about every time Randy tells a horrible story is that I know that you have cut stuff out. And that means it's worse than we can even imagine.
Yeah, actually, 100% I cut out the worst story of what happened. I read it and said, I don't want to tell anyone that.
Yeah, I get it. Well, in addition to experiencing terrible waters and such on the ship, parents were often forced into indentured servitude because captains would often separate the husbands and the wife, as well as sell and trade the children in order to pay their voyage. So the parents have to pay for the kids, and in doing so, they end up in indentured servitude. So now back to the SeaFlower ship. It's not going well, and quickly most of the crew, except for one, die, and they leave all the passengers alone mid-voyage without any food or means to sail the ship because there's only one guy left.
Okay, but if you were the last man standing, wouldn't you then unlock everybody and be like, "Can somebody fucking help steer this ship?" Why would you be the last man left and just stay alone?
I mean, he's just part of the crew. That doesn't mean he's the guy that knows how to sail the crew or sail the ship.
That's what
He could
I'm
just be
saying.
like
He's
a
the
guy.
last man. Well, just open the cells at that point. Why is he
I
staying
think
by
they were,
himself?
no, they were open, but they also had no knowledge, regardless of who's
Oh,
out. If they don't know how to get places, they're just not getting places. And they don't have any food because remember, everything is worms and spiders
oh
or
yeah. How
mold.
quickly I had forgotten that.
Yeah,
I
Randy,
blocked
how
that
have you
out.
forgotten about the mold? So they ate everything that they could find that was edible. Tallow, candles, the dead people. Because you got to do what you got to do.
Candles?
Candles, because some of them are made out of like lard, fat.
Oh, that's fair.
Hmm.
I was thinking, I was like, it's like chewing on that. Do you remember those wax candies that have like the juice in the
Yes.
middle? So that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking.
Just of the little bottles.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Did
eventually,
this
oh, go
did
ahead,
this
Randy.
cannibalism follow the aforementioned steps of cannibalism that we learned about in
The
my boat book?
procedure.
The procedure? Did they eat the meatiest parts first?
Well, maybe because when this ship, the Success, found the SeaFlower, um, they found a body of a man just lying on the deck with pieces cut up, with an arm and a shoulder in a pot. So they were getting the meatiest morsels, but also some of them had just little bits of human flesh in their pockets to nibble on when they had just some free time.
Like beef jerky.
Yeah, you just get a little chewing. But also it was like this or just die, I guess. Randy.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. It's not this or just die if this is keeping a little piece of flesh in your pocket. It is one thing to eat out of necessity, but you are putting someone's skin into your pocket. No, no, no. No, I am sorry. You have crossed all sorts of boundaries. No.
I said I'm not putting anyone's skin in my pocket.
I don't know where that would have been on the procedure list, but it was not mentioned.
Yeah, that is
So,
really weird to think about. You're like, oh, I'm getting hungry.
Anyway, so
Nibble, nibble,
wonderful
nibble.
things
nibble.
come from stories that you just randomly pick on a whim, and this is what happened. Because I just picked the shit because I was like, wow, this really pertains to what I want to talk about. And then the more I looked into it, the more I was like, what the fuck was actually going on this ship?
I mean, honestly, I'm with Randy. Like, carrying it to go is such a different perspective than just being like, yo, the body's here, like picking off of it that way, I guess. But it's like, no, I'm bringing you with me later when I have a hankering.
This is an
Like
activity
this,
now.
this was yummy. Like this piece was yummy. I'm gonna get it to go.
Okay, but also maybe they thought like if I don't get some now, I might die at any second. I need anything I can get.
No.
Yeah.
Randy, they
Randy
liked
said
it
no.
too much.
I
Okay,
I mean
so
again, I can understand sustenance eating, m- but don't put it in your pocket. It's not a hot pocket. I'm not. Mm-mm.
anywho, so they found them, so they didn't have to keep eating pocket meat. Anyway, okay, so the ship eventually arrives in Boston and not Philadelphia, the original location of intention. Like that's where they were supposed to go. 65 passengers were alive, and they had been at sea for at least 16 weeks when they were found. I bring up this really tragic, sad, weird, concerning story of the SeaFlower to highlight what kind of journey this was for the newly immigrated to the colonies. We have talked about, and we will continue to talk about, the injustices of what colonial people did to enslaved people. But we also have to acknowledge the horrors that colonialism has done to white people and the people that they pulled along to do their work. Part of the reason I started the American History Story series that we did in last November was to bring light to the way that we have all been exploited by the need for the rich to exploit every inch of life in this world. People of color are not the only victims of colonization. In an ad for indentured servants in the Virginia Gazette of March 28th, 1771, there's a description. Just arrived at Leedstown, the ship Justitia, with about 100 healthy servants, men, women, and boys. The sale will commence on Tuesday, the 2nd of April. This was a difficult time for anyone who just wasn't a rich white man, similar to today. It has not changed. That is kind of how we built this place. One person wrote a letter to England and it said, "Whoever is well off in Europe better remain there. Here is misery and distress." Another wrote about seeing a man beaten with a cane until he bled for no reason, just because they were servants. Many servants would choose to die through their own means rather than continue living that life, and 4 out of 5 servants were expected to die of disease if they made it through the voyage. Often they would just gather poor children, put them on a ship, and send them to be servants in the colonies, and most of them would die. The masters of white servants ruled them completely. One Pennsylvania law stated that servants who married without the consent of masters would be charged for adultery and fornications, and the children of that marriage would be bastards. And that's why the wine made sense when I saw it.
Karina, that is
I know, I felt like such an awful person, but I
what a
couldn't stop thinking
weird
about it.
connector. That is a strange connector.
But he would not, none of these people would be this round, okay? Because they would be starved. They were starved because they were poor. Anyway, literally though, I saw it and I could not stop. Like it kept cracking me up and I was like, am I an asshole? And yes, but like it was so funny to me. Anyway, the things I
Kind
do
of
for
like the
humor.
guy on your wine bottle.
Yes, il bastardo. It's just him. But yeah, if you're not married, if your master didn't approve your marriage, even if you were a white, like because you're a white indentured servant, it's not real. It's
Dang,
not real.
they had to approve your, like, what are the stipulations?
Whatever they want. Basically, I feel like before the Stoner Rebellion or before Bacon's Rebellion, it was like they treated the poor whites and the poor black people and so
Hmm.
enslaved people similarly.
Yeah, yeah.
Until the Stoner Rebellion, then they like ganged up together and they were like, "Oh no, no, no." So this is kind of the story of how they were treated before, which isn't great. Okay, yes. And the children of the marriage would be bastards, as they say.
Your wine
But all
bottle.
those I, I just why is he on a scooter? Where is he going?
You picked the right drink for this.
I don't I couldn't get it out of my head. Anyway. So although some see this is why I am the way I am because Christina is an enabler. Since 5th grade, Christina's been
Yeah.
like, "This is funny. I like
I'm
that."
like, Karina, what the fuck? And Christina's like, yeah.
But yeah, in sadder news, I've drank a lot of this bottle, so although some laws were in place to protect servants, protect, unfortunately for them, they didn't have much representation in courts. In order to vote, you had to be a property owner. Guess who can't own property? People that are indentured servants. They were also not allowed on juries. So everyone who would go to court and like accuse their master of an injustice would often be let off on a lighter sentence or just evidence would quote unquote go missing in a way to protect the master because it was like, oh, all of the same masters were the ones on the juries because they were the only ones able to do it.
Right. Hmm.
So from the beginning, before this was even a country, it has been a system that worked for the upper class.
You know, that puts a real perspective on jury of my peers.
That's true because if it was a true representation of your peers, would not be also people of your equal class cast,
Well,
in
but they
theory.
if they didn't view them as real people, that only left white landowners to be your peers.
That's true. Well, and also your betters, because like obviously they know better because they have more
Hmm.
money. Yeah.
Hmm.
They did have a few rebellions, including Bacon's Rebellion, which we talked about in our episode 1739 and the Stoner Rebellion. But for the most part, servants rarely rebelled together. They did find ways to show their masters how unhappy they were, though. One servant was accused of violently laying hands on his master and, quote, throwing him down twice, threatening to break his neck and running at his face with a chair.
Kind of like
Which,
he
like,
deserved it.
I didn't see nothing.
Hmm.
I saw nothing. They often chose escaping with mass desertion rates in the southern colonies, which is very understandable. Servants even attempted to strike because the story in one of the books was that they were only eating beans and bread, and they were so weak they weren't able to perform what the master wanted, so they went on strike. So the courts were super reasonable and they decided to give them 30 lashes for striking. More than half of those who came to North America came as servants. During the 17th century, they primarily came from England, and during the 18th century, it was immigrants mostly from Ireland and Germany. As time went on, most of the work was done not by white servants, but by enslaved people taken from Africa. After Bacon's rebellion, the ruling class got scared by the fact that some enslaved people had joined forces with the white servants in their fight. And it was like, oh my God, the biggest fear that they could have had just come to reality and had almost succeeded in rebellion, right? I mean, I feel like any inch an oppressed population takes against their oppressor is always taken like aggressively as a threat, you know? Anywho, so this was their biggest fear, and it almost succeeded. So laws began to pop up, like the one of Virginia posted in 1705, which gave indentured servants whose contracts were up 10 bushels of corn, 30 shillings, and a gun. And then women were to receive 15 bushels of corn and 40 shillings, as well as newly freed servants also received 50 acres of land. So in this, they gave them enough to help them out get started, but it was never enough to change the power balance in the colonies. The people had feelings of disdain for the indentured servant class. They thought they were thieves with bastard children who had corrupted society with loathsome disease, which is really similar to the way most of us or most people do think about the unhoused population. Most, like, a lot of people, I think, growing up had that mentality towards people that didn't have homes or to live in the streets is like they did something to deserve that fate to get there. 80% were considered to be shiftless, hopeless, ruined individuals who died during their servitude or returned to England after their servitude was done or just became poor white people leeching on the system. A study done on servants of 17th century Maryland found that first batches of servants who came over did become landowners and politically involved. So the first few batches of people that came here were like actually doing the thing. However, the second generations, so the second half of the century, a lot of those immigrants came and they remained servants. Most of them were even servants 10 years after they were supposed to have been freed. Those that even made it that far, like to gain their freedom, were often landless. Because a servant without their own property of land can become a tenant. And who benefits from that? If we have someone who has to pay rent,
The landowner.
and then they can keep making more money. Anyway, all of that was terrible. So, pretty quickly into colonization, those who were making it big figured out how to keep it that way and maintain their status in society. By 1700, there were about 50 families in the state of Virginia who had about 50,000 pounds each. According to officialdata.org's inflation calculator, 50,000 pounds in 1700 colonial British occupied North America is worth almost about $4 billion today. So everyone's just a billionaire making this money by using enslaved labor and white servants on plantations. They
Yeah,
controlled the
but
government.
but
Oh,
I'm
yes.
pretty sure that that's the only way that you can become a billionaire. The only way for you to have that much money is to have unethical work practices, to exploit labor sources, and to cheat and lie and steal resources from a community. That is literally the only way to become a billionaire. There's no other way to do it.
I mean, we all know about Amazon. Like, we all use it, but we all know about it. Like, what is it, Bo Burnham? The next frontier isn't land, it's your brain, it's attention span.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so not only were they in control of the economy, they also were in control of the government, as well as serving on, oh my God, because they served on governors' councils, as well as were the local magistrates that were in control of their local regions. So this is the guy that makes the rules, and he also makes all the money. As we discussed in our episode 23, John Locke and 1663, the Carolinas were literally built to maintain a permanent peasant working class with 8 barons that would own 40% of the land, as well as be the only ones who could be the governors. Most of the colonial areas were built. I mean, even if they all started with great intentions, most of them were built with a very prominent, obvious ruling upper class and a bunch of poor people. In 1700, New York City churches began to ask for funds from the council because the cries of the poor and impotent are extremely grievous and they keep bothering us. So by 1730, they began to build their first houses to contain the poor. It was just a brick building with a sign that said, quote, poorhouse, workhouse, and house of correction. It was an all-in-one. And like I've been pretty much saying throughout this whole lecture, I don't know. Regardless of how big the colonies became, the poor remained everywhere and the classes remained divided. Eventually, most cities built poorhouses to house the most vulnerable in the community. So it was like poor children, poor elderly, just anybody that was probably going to die in a really cold night. 100% poor, free white workers were better off than slaves and or servants. Like to be a poor white, you were definitely above anybody that was enslaved or anyone under an indentured contract for sure. But they were still at the bottom and they were still subject to the treatments of the upper class. And they did have their own, there are so many rebellions amongst poor whites, enslaved people, and free whites just hoping to get their freedoms and hoping to get some rights amongst the rich that take over everything and do everything to keep us down. Regardless of all of these attempts to maintain their money, a middle class did develop in these colonies, and the upper class, in their fear, needed to get the loyalty from the middle class without risking losing their money or their labor, regardless of what it did to anybody else. So in the 1760s and 1770s, the creation of one common enemy, England, and that allows them to be united as just white people together against our common enemy, England, but also against these weird other people who are different from us. And we will go into that later, but for now, that's the end of our episode. Anyway, so there's the trauma.
I find it so annoying that when England, that the force of England was enough to make them abandon that solidarity so quickly.
Well, and it makes me sad because I think a lot of these people were they were poor, they were servants, they did live through this, but like they were also given gifts and helped out in certain ways. Like I understand the mentality of like I worked for this money, I worked for this for receiving whatever I got, but at the same time, like you were still fucked over, like you were still used and abused for how many years,
I
Hmm.
was gonna
and
say, whenever you said that, like they were years, they were still enslaved, even though they were like supposed to be free. I was like, that's so freaking fucked, dude. Like,
and the whole time I was writing this, I was like, and this is how they treat their own people. And the only reason they even changed what they were doing was not because they cared about the well-being of poor white people, but because they were more worried about losing their own status by combining because the poors were going to combine together. Like that's the part that fucks me up is that it wasn't because they cared about them. It was because they wanted to
But it
continue to keep
worked.
using them. Yeah,
That's
and
what's
it
even
continues to
more,
work.
that's what's even more upsetting
yeah.
is that swing sector, the one that gets brought in, their willing and readiness to just abandon all of that for a slice of the good life. It's really sad.
Honestly, when I read this book, Trash, A Poor White Journey by Cedar Monroe, and it kind of was what sparked my interest in this was because I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that how fucked over white people were
Hmm.
also in this situation. I have just never thought about it because we've never really looked into what people go through in colonization. Not the rich white people, not like this language of success and like, haha, I've achieved more land, I've gathered more. It's not that. It's like, what were the people that had to come over and murder doing? What were their lives like? What were the people that were sent over without any education, without any knowledge of what was actually going to happen? And then they were just like, hope you can make it. And then when you
Well,
die multiple times, they
does
don't
it
care.
disturb does it disturb you that that's still what's happening?
No, because I'm literally
That's still how they're writing history. Like when people talk about if the economy is up or down, if the stock market is moving up or down, that is a very small percentage of the country that is influencing and benefiting majorly from that movement. You know? I
No, I'm
and
fully aware. If you're even able to look at those numbers with, and I'm saying this as a person with like that privilege, if you're even able to look at those numbers with any like, oh, well, like I have interest in this, you're already a different class than a lot of
Mhm,
people in this country.
mhm.
Because that any amount of expendable income in any capacity is already like levels above most people in this country. And that is because of a certain few. And like they will continue to do anything they can to continue that increase of profits at the expense of any life taken, unfortunately.
I'm sure there's a bell curve for that though.
Well, yeah, because like
Because it
that's the
always ends
thing
in
that
revolution. It always ends in revolution.
I'm sure there's numbers somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of us can see how this is applicable today, for sure. Unfortunately, every day is like another, like, oh, I see it again.
I love that this all started from a Cannibal Cruise. Thank you for that, Karina. That
The
was
Cannibal
fun.
Cruise was fucking wild. I was like, I don't know what to do with this.
You're gonna have to make a sticker with the pocket meat thing because that was just so that was so left field.
Don't forget your pocket meat.
Sorry, I'm
Could
gonna
you
write
No,
that
I
down.
can't
imagine?
handle it. I can't handle it. No, there was something that Christina said I think was better. Warm pocket meat, something like that.
Oh, I love that though. Don't forget it. Don't.
Like, cause for me, like, okay, and I'm sure, like, I'm not trying to think too deep into it, but like, I'm like, how big is the piece? What are you know what I mean? Like, are you cutting small pieces, or is you know what I mean? What does your pocket smell like? Cause I can't smell good, you know? Like,
Pocket meat.
Christina, I
yeah,
think at this point, if you've been at the sea for 16 weeks, you're not worried about the reek that you're reeking or the smell of your fucking pocket meat. Everything on that ship is rank. Nothing is
that's
good.
true.
There's not a good scent. There's
But
not
we're
enough
in the
See,
spray.
like,
ocean. No one could cast a line,
yeah,
maybe try and catch a fish. Like, I'm sorry. I'm still struggling with this thought that they had to devolve to pocket meat.
you got lint all in your, you know what I
Cannibalism,
mean?
I can even accept the cannibalism. I can even accept it.
Christina, you can do cannibalism and Randy will be okay with it.
I will understand if the need arises. I would never judge. I would never judge a person's quest for survival. I don't know what I would do in that case, you know? I think
Yeah,
if
yeah,
somebody
I feel
else
that.
offered me the meat, I would probably take it if I was starving. I don't know that I could do it myself, but I think if someone handed it to me, I could get myself there. You know what I mean? But
I'm not gonna keep it in my own pocket though.
y-
I'd be like, can you wrap it for put it in something else? I don't want it straight out your pocket. I don't want it. I don't want the lint. I don't want the dirt. I don't want the
Mm.
contents that it
like
else is touching.
it's just giving ideas of like were they doing charcuterie boards of like this meat? Like
I
what?
don't think they were. I think they were just like, I want to make sure I have a little chunk just in case something happens.
Or like, are they cooking it and then putting it in their pocket?
Mm.
Because that's a little bit different. No, maybe it's not different. But
Also, I
Yeah.
would never eat anything that came out of my pocket. I don't want lint on my
That's what I'm
food.
saying. It's dirty. It is dirty. It's fuzzy. You get a
Yeah.
hair, like I'm just
Ugh. No.
You know what? If you, our listener, would eat pocket meat, send us a message and let us know why.
I
We're not
sound
gonna
like
do
I'm
it.
too. I have see. They're gonna be like Christina's gonna die. She's gonna refuse. She ain't gonna eat.
Well,
She ain't
where
gonna
does
eat them.
that fall on the cannibalism outline that we were given? Like, I've really struggled with that passage already.
They have
They did
had to
not
put
have
that in there somewhere.
room.
Yeah.
They did not leave room for pocket meat.
No.
It's
When
really
you
Mad
put,
Max.
yeah, yeah.
It's giving like full-blown apocalypse, you know?
You're not eating people because you're having a good time. Well,
Karina, please stop.
I have. You know what? We're done talking about eating people because I just can't do it anymore. So if you have enjoyed today's episode, or if you have commentary about what we have just talked about for longer than we should have, maybe, or would like to continue to support our historical endeavors and finding this weird niche history that no one should know about, but here we are. No, you know what? We all need to know about this. This is why we're telling you the story. We need to know more terrible things that people have done.
I need someone to tell Greg 'cause I want to know what his thoughts are on it. Just throwing that out there.
I need Greg to comment on
I know.
everything
I
we
I
am
post
need,
sad
about this.
Greg wasn't here tonight.
I know.
I'm
I
always
was
sad
like,
when one
Greg,
of
you're
us is
missing
missing.
out.
We miss you,
It's
Greg.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have to listen. I need like feedback about this episode. Anywho, so yeah, if you also have feedback on our episode, visit our website, sipandsaga.online, where we have merch. And also, Randy has like really done so many beautiful things with it and has put up a countdown to our book club, which I thought was impressive. There's so much information. If you want to know more about us, there's stuff on there.
And
There are
there will be more
tiers.
coming, still
Yes, there's so
coming.
much. There's drinks, the percentages of what kind of beverages we've been drinking. I thought that was cool. Thank you so much for listening to our episode, but for now, we gotta go. We got naps to take and cannibalism to not talk about. But bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Adios. So.